Hey, I'm Randy and I'm the Cheap Audio Man. Here at the Cheap Audio Man, we don't feel like hi-fi equipment, speakers, DACs, amps, turntables, receivers, cassettes, phono preamps, cables, power conditioners should cost more than an ultralight aircraft, so you can fulfill your lifelong dream of dying in a small aircraft accident, because it's a lot harder to do than you think it is. And these don't. What are they? They're the Elac Uni-fi reference speakers. Brand new speaker. So sit down, grab a giant coffee mug you bought for your wife for Valentine's Day, and let's talk about the Elac reference Uni-fi reference speakers. Today's sponsor is Andrew Jones British Salsa. They're going out of business. Right now there's 155-gallon drums of Andrew Jones British Salsa left in the warehouse. They're $5 a piece. That includes shipping. We kind of feel bad for Andrew. I know that he kind of wanted to diversify himself and jump into the lucrative salsa business. And it turns out that a British speaker maker is wildly unpopular when it comes to making salsa, and British salsa at that. Okay, the Uni-fi reference from Elac. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. One of my favorite speakers is the Elac reference. Actually, all the Elac speakers. So I like the debut reference, love them. I love the Uni-fi UB5s, the first gen and the second gen. And guess what? I have the new reference Uni-fis in. These are a three-way speaker, 1-inch soft dome tweeter mounted concentrically, and a 4-inch mid-range aluminum driver, and they have a 6.5-inch aluminum woofer. They're 6 ohm and rated at 85 dB sensitivity. I drove these off of the Vista Audio Spark, which is a 20 watt per channel AB amplifier, and also off of the Emotiva A2 amplifier, just a power amp, and that's rated like 160 watts into 8 ohms and like 250 watts into 4 ohms. I will say these do like a little bit of power. On the front end, I had the Blue Sound Node 2i acting as a preamp into both the Vista Audio Spark and the Emotiva A2. I also tried these with the Denafrips going into the SMSL DA9. So these are a pretty speaker. They look very similar to the other reference line. I'll put this down here. These are in walnut. I think it's walnut or oak. These are in brown wood color. Very similar, if not the exact same wrap that's on the debut reference. Very nice. On the back, they're biampable, and these have never been biampable before, any of the Mr. Jones's speakers, okay? And they're very nice. Very solid biamp capabilities back here. I'm just going to keep doing this, okay? So if you want to biamp them, you can now. You couldn't before. And they're very cool looking on the front. They have a little reflective ring around them, and the drivers are in black, which is really cool. I don't know, it's really cool. I like black. I like black drivers. They're cool. They're a lot better looking than the UB52s, okay? Which sounds great, but I wish they looked like this. Also, front ported, just like the debut reference, just like the UB52s, just like the 6.2s and the 5.2s. I tested these in my office, where I usually test things, in a near field experience, and I had them about 12 inches from the wall, maybe a little bit more. Also put them up in my listening room, which is the kids' playroom, and I had them 2 places. I tried them about 36 inches from the wall, and then about 24 inches from the wall, and then pretty close to the wall, maybe a foot or so. Now I had them towed in pretty good. So from like the middle part of the speaker to the wall, at an angle, was about 12 inches. I found that they either like to be into the room a bit or close to the wall. Not really. Actually, I think they sounded really in Soundstage and Image the best when they were actually closer to the wall. Speaking of Soundstage and Imaging, let's talk about Soundstage and Imaging. Soundstage and Imaging. I found the best to be either greater than 24 inches or close to the wall. and closer to the wall I actually enjoyed the most. It's excellent, and I had no doubts that Soundstage and Imaging was going to be fantastic, because just literally every other speaker I've ever heard out of Elac has had standout Soundstage and Imaging. The vertical off-axis is amazing. You don't really lose anything by standing up. I used the usual suspects. One of the best Soundstage and Imaging songs that I've come across is Chocolate Chip Trip by Tool. I had these towed out a little bit, not directly at me, towed in directly at me, and then a heavy, aggressive toe in, kind of like when the opposite speaker's hitting your opposite shoulder. So right speaker would be hitting your left shoulder. Anyway, it didn't really matter. I didn't feel like I got a huge improvement with how I had these towed in. So seamless travel with Chocolate Chip Trip between right and left. Very immersive going around me. The room I had it in has pretty consistent sidewalls, although the right sidewall is further away from the speakers than the left sidewall. Regardless, it did a wonderful job, just like I thought it would do. Center imaging is not only locked in, but there is a depth forward to aft on these speakers on the soundstage that is really apparent in live recordings like Nirvana MTV Unplugged. I can't remember I think it's Dumb. There's a cough that comes out of the left speaker and it's back, and it was way far behind. It just gives you a glimpse into the space and the size of the space that the record or recording was recorded in. More Human Than Human by White Zombie. At the beginning, there's little electronic noises that go back and forth. Again, seamless. Very seamless. Very immersive experience with this speaker. Hello by Adele. Her voice was behind the speakers and above. The entire soundstage really started when I got them the right distance from the wall. It was kind of back, behind, and then up. Brilliant. Brilliant. Probably, besides the UB52s, the best sound staging and imaging on the whole. And I'm talking about from imaging, from travel, from depth, from height. Amazing soundstage and imaging. Absolutely outstanding. Let's talk about bass. Bass. This is where I figured out that these speakers like a bit of juice. When I was listening to them through the Vista Audio Spark, which is 20 watts per channel, I noticed that they seemed a little bit thin on the bottom. The upper mid-range and treble was fantastic on the Vista Audio Spark, but I was wanting more bass. So I put in the Emotiva A2 power amplifier, which is a lot more powerful. And guess what? The bass came back, and it was great. Well, it never really went away. It was just didn't have enough power. So probably want to get some juice into these. The bass was very balanced with the rest of the sound signature. Low, great extension. Intergalactic by the Beastie Boys. That song can go very, very deep. With these, closer to the wall, I got very good extension. The bass on these, I feel, is not bumped in any way. Whatever the song serves up from a bass perspective is what these speakers are going to give you. Very similar to the Elac Uni-fi UB52s. The one difference between the 52s and these is I could feel the bass, and it wasn't necessarily a sound like, oh, the bass seems more apparent. I noticed that I started to feel the bass vibrations in my feet. The sound, per se, that the UB52 served up against the Uni-fi reference was very similar to me, but it was the visceral experience of feeling the bass that was different. Also, I felt this in lower mid-range frequencies like Metallica guitars around the 400, 500 hertz, just a very visceral. Again, I heard it, but I felt it with the reference. Bass, tone, texture, clarity, whatever you want to call it, is where the reference really starts to separate itself from the UB52 and really any other factory speaker that I've heard. Lakini's Juice by Live. In that song, there's a background bass, and it just sounds like someone's just just pulling their fingers down the bass. And the level of clarity, and like on an acoustic guitar when they move their strings and you can hear that, you can kind of hear that on a very good speaker. You could hear that, the differences, the nuances as he drug his finger. I don't know if it's a he, whoever it was playing the bass drug their fingers down. The electric bass guitar. Stand-up bass in So What by Miles Davis, Kind of Blue record. Very realistic. I've only heard better. I don't even know if it's better. I've only heard this level of bass clarity come from DIY kits, which is the CSS Crichton, and to some extent the GR Research XLS Encore. Bass punch was very present. Killing Strangers by Marilyn Manson was very visceral and thumpy, but Highway to Hell by AC/DC was very tight. So again, whatever the recording is going to give you, these speakers are going to give it back to you. Let's talk about midrange. Midrange. Clarity, neutrality, wonderful. The only other speaker that rivals this speaker in the level of neutrality would be the Uni-fi UB52s. With the 52s, they lack a bit of body that the reference provides. There Will Be Time by Mumford & Sons. The voices had a level of clarity and in the room presence and realism that I haven't heard on anything really. I really haven't heard anything that is this neutral and this real sounding, with the exception of maybe the Uni-fi UB52s. But when I A/B the 52s and these, I hear more body from the reference, which makes sense because it has a bigger woofer. Acoustic guitars, Alice in Chains, MTV Unplugged, Rooster, again, extraordinary levels of detail, extraordinary levels of realism in the room. And when you mate up that neutral but hefty mid-range, and that's kind of different, right? So we have clarity, and usually when we have a lot of clarity, we lack body. Usually when we have a lot of body, we lack clarity. But again, this is incredibly neutral and a perfect balance of body and clarity. Amazing. And that all kind of translates into realism, realistic experiences with the music. Female vocals. Hello by Adele. A neutral speaker, a full speaker, and a a lively speaker can all render Adele's voice wonderfully. I enjoy a rolled off speaker because it makes her voice feel and sound smoky. I enjoy a very lively speaker on top because it makes her voice seem ultra clear. Again, we have a convergence of perfect combination between full and lively and clear. Just wonderful. Just flat out wonderful. One of the best neutral sounding speakers. It is the best neutral sounding speaker I've heard when it comes to mid-range. Great job, Elac. Let's talk about treble. Woo, treble. Very good. Very, very good. One of the things I love about AMT speakers is the level of clarity. So anything from Emotiva, I love that level of clarity. Sometimes, though, it lends itself to not providing a great soundstage or imaging experience. Sometimes the speakers have a harder time disappearing when they have an AMT tweeter. This is a soft dome tweeter, and it sounds like very good titanium tweeter, a very good AMT tweeter. It gives me all the level of clarity that I could ever want out of any speaker without being fatiguing in any way. Cinderman, Nina Simone, the 16th notes. I've messed it up. Were wonderful. In the room sounding. Very good job. Cymbal hits. Harvester of Sorrow by Metallica. I love the cymbals on that song because it's offbeat. You get the cymbal. You're not covering up the cymbal with a bass drum kick or anything. They're offbeat cymbals. So that's it. That's all it is a cymbal. And the decay of the cymbal, the realism, fantastic. Steve Winwood, Higher Love, at the beginning of that song, a bunch of percussion. And when you get that snap, the hit with the percussion, whether it be on the actual snare drum or on the rim, there's just a quick hit spark that needs to be tactile and clear all at the same time. And the better a speaker renders that, the more realistic it sounds. And guess what? It sounded like Steve Winwood had the whole percussion section in my upstairs kids' playroom. So what are my final thoughts on the Elac reference Uni-fi, Elac Uni-fi reference? Final thoughts on the Uni-fi reference. I'm using my old table, can you tell? On the Uni-fi reference is, number one, I wish this is what the KEF LS50 sounded like, because this walks all over the KEF LS50. Okay? It gives you all the detail without sacrificing any low end as the KEF LS50 should give you, but it doesn't. These are cheaper than the KEF LS50 and they sound way, way better. This speaker is neutral, flat. Did I measure it? No, I measured it with my ears, not some sound robot, to determine whether or not it sounds good. I used my ears to see if it sounded good. And guess what? It sounds great. Flat sounding speaker gives you what the music serves up. A lot of times, flat sounding speakers can sound boring. This does not sound boring at all. This is a improvement, I think, in every way above the UB52. The speaker is wonderful, beautiful, can go very close to wall, so you don't have to worry about tripping over it at night when you pull it 16 feet out from your wall so that you can make the soundstage really, really good. And then you're staggering to the kitchen because your kid wants chocolate milk at night and you knock over your speaker and you break it. You don't have to worry about it. You can have it like 12 inches from the wall on a nice quality pair of bar stools or whatever you want to put them on. This speaker's $1,000 a pair. That's expensive. And now, before anybody out there starts to say, oh, you're not the cheap audio man anymore, you're expensive audio man, I have over 200 videos, and about 4 of them are of products that are $1,000 or even around $1,000, even above like $600. 4, that's less than 2%. Maybe I have 5, but anyway, the point is most of my videos are about products that are $600 or lower, and every once in a while we go outside of that. I will always go outside of that for anything made by Elac and Andrew Jones. I have no doubt that Andrew Jones is the most talented speaker engineer that's out there right now. The quality of these speakers is absolutely obvious when you pick them up out of their box because they are heavy. They're braced very well, and some people are going to say, you don't knock on it, that doesn't tell you how it's braced or not. Well, guess what? They're braced really well. So, they're pretty inert. Heavy, very heavy. These are significantly heavier than most speakers of their size. Heavier than the debut reference, heavier than the UB52s. Heavy. In most cases, something that's heavier generally means that it's a lot better. I don't know if that's true. Anyway, these are heavy. That's my point. What's the crossover made out of, and what does it look like? Does it have sandcast resistors? Is it horrible? I don't know, because I didn't open it up. Because I didn't have to, because it sounds wonderful. I don't care if he duct taped together some paper clips and, I don't know, juicy fruit foil wrappers in there to do the crossover. It sounds great. I don't care what it looks like. I don't care what kind of components it's made out of. I don't need to see it because it sounds awesome. Great speaker. Is it worth $1,000? That's up to you. That's a difficult decision. But the Uni-fi UB52s is generally $600. It's been going on sale down to sometimes less than $500, and that's a great buy. So if you take the Uni-fi UB52s at $600 and then you start to add on, okay, well, this is much better looking. I'm sorry, Andrew, the UB52 is not that attractive. this is attractive. It's a very nice looking speaker. It's a handsome speaker. So if you take that into account, that's worth something. All right, let's say that's worth $150. You take lower bass extension. All right, that's worth another $50 to $100. Okay, so what are we, $250? So now we're at $850. Then you take a maturity level, a little bit more mature, a little bit better soundstage, a little bit better imaging, and you get to $1,000. So I think it justifies its price. Do I wish it was $750 or $800? Yes, of course I do. But at $1,000, I think this is well worth the retail price. And for a factory speaker, only thing that's going to rival these at $1,000 is going to be DIY kits that you have to put together yourself. And there's no guarantee that you're going to put them together correctly. This speaker, my favorite speakers lately have been the GR Research XLS Encore, the CSS Crichton 1TD or 1TDX, and these. These really fall right in between those speakers as far as detail. So again, I would say the GR Research is more lively. I would say the Crichton is great on the bottom end, a little bit more lush. These fall right in the middle. And at $1,000, I think they justify their price. I think it's a great speaker. I think it's a big enough of a step up from the UB52 that it may be worth considering if you already have the UB52s to look at these. If you want to support the channel, subscribe. You can use any of the links in the description. I don't know if these even are going to be, I don't know where you can get these. This is the first day that they're available. So you may be able to get them from the Elac website. I don't know. Whatever it is, I'll link it so you can get them or pre-order them or whatever it is. You can sign up for Zoom. You can sign up for Patreon. Patreon.com/cheapaudioman. Every Sunday night we have Patreon-only Zooms where we get together and chit-chat. Sign up for Amazon Music. All HD high-resolution tracks are now included in Amazon Music. So you sign up, you get 3 months for free. I get a couple of dollars. So don't binge watch anything. Get yourself a pair of Elac Uni-fi reference speakers. Just look at them for a long time because they're so pretty. And then listen to them and fill your soul with happiness because they sound awesome. And with that, I'm Randy. I'm that cheap audio man.